John here with your forecast for the week of March 17th, 2025. Now, you may say to yourself, you may say, gee, this is a boring forecast. I mean, no, not the forecast is boring because, but like what's happening this week may not seem all that exciting to you. It's not quite what last week and some of the recent weeks have been, but it's still pretty charged and significant. Let's think about it. First of all, we begin the week with Mercury newly retrograde. Mercury retrograded, stationed to retrograde on Saturday, March 15th, the Ides of March. Beware them. And those of you watching on the weekend of the 15th and the 16th, and I would say as far as the 17th, be aware that mercurial mishaps multiply right around the stations the entire time that Mercury is retrograde. And in fact, while he's in his shadow, particularly this time around, what with the whole Pisces Neptune thing going on, uh, particularly this time around, things do go wrong, but right around the station, we usually get the most dramatic effects. So that's one thing. So Mercury is going to be retrograde, of course, all of this week and into April. Yeah, right? Yeah. And the next thing is that Venus is still retrograde. Venus is the most active planet this week, so we'll be talking a lot about Venus. Mars is out of retrograde, but he's in his shadow going forward. He's in the sign of Cancer that he doesn't really like, and he's out of bounds. And that really charges up, let's say, I would say that's a reactivity kind of thing. Folks are getting really a little charged up, and it's a reactive kind of thing in Cancer. It's a sort of, protective, like, who the hell are you kind of energy. So that's still going on. And we have the eclipse just behind us, the lunar eclipse from last week on the 14th. That would be earliest on Friday, the 14th. And we're trailing away from that, but the energy of eclipse season never gets that low. In fact, it remains elevated beyond the solar eclipse, which is coming up at the end of the month. So there's a lot of high energy and there's a lot of potential for confusion. Right? We've got the retrograde of Mercury throwing in the confusion. We also have Neptune, I should mention, at 29, something like 29 degrees, 53 minutes of Pisces throughout the week. So we're talking about a real, we're talking about the strong Piscean vibe coming from Neptune. And well, we'll be, oh, by the way, we'll be doing the forecast for Neptune in Aries. That'll be coming out pretty soon. That'll be coming out at midweek sometime or another. So this confusion, I think Neptune at the anaretic degree of the zodiac in his own sign is certainly a kind of potentially great sort of letting go into spirit kind of energy and potentially sort of a hopeless feeling kind of energy. And you choose or you get what or you get what's coming your way, I suppose, rather than you choose. Maybe you can choose, try to choose for something that is a little bit brighter. But so this is not a calm week. That's the first thing. It's not a calm week, even though when we talk about the aspects that are happening, it doesn't seem all that dramatic, except for one thing that is happening that is so exciting. But we'll hold off on that for just a second. Okay, now relationship comes into focus this week. If we had to talk about one theme of the week, it would have to be relationship. The first thing that happens is that Juno, the partnership asteroid, is going to station to retrograde early in the week. In the very beginning of Sagittarius, which is her hubby's home sign, Jupiter's home sign. And so the retrograde of Pallas Athena, and she retrogrades for a fairly long period of time, having about a 4-year orbit. She retrogrades for a fairly long period of time. It's right around the station that we're going to get sort of the most juice out of that retrograde. And it has a lot to do with, thinking and rethinking about relationship commitment. I always say that Venus is what you want and Juno is what you get. And so with both of them retrograde, there's a lot of reconsideration and rethinking of things. Now, Of course, if you're in a good relationship in a good place, it doesn't even matter, right? Nothing happens. If you're in a bad relationship, you think about it and you reconsider where you are. You reconsider reinvesting in the relationship, or perhaps you could reconsider divesting yourself of the relationship. So that's kind of what goes on throughout the week. Venus goes on to sextile Pluto. Anything that might have been significant in relationship right around February 7th gets a revisit with this. And then Venus retrograding in Aries goes on to make a trine to Juno, who is retrograding now in Sagittarius. And uh, that happens actually. That happens earliest hours of the 24th Eastern Daylight Time, and so that's kind of a opportunity to sort of it's an opportunity to rethink where you are with what you want and what you got. This aspect was exact last. We had this. I'm checking my notes over here. This aspect was exact last. There was a nice relationship between the two right around January 30th. But then Venus was in Pisces and Juno was in Scorpio. And for and that feeling was kind of like, well, I'm going to balance out this sort of sense of, openness, Venus and Pisces, and kind of like what I want and what I need and what better not leave me, or who better not leave me, with Juno in Scorpio. This is a much more fiery, much more active, I would say much more optimistic aspect. The only thing about it is, of course, we have to wait until Venus goes direct and then meets with retrograding Juno. And that's going to happen sometime in April. I'll bring it up when we get there, but I'm not quite sure when that's going to happen. It'll probably happen once again with the Pisces and Scorpio aspects in signs in place. And that would seem to suggest a little bit more of the, I would say is a little bit less optimistic, but a little bit more practical in terms of what you're going to do. But that's the period of time in which you'll decide what to do. Venus meets with the Sun this week, and that's an aspect that will have a pretty powerful effect. That is uh, well, it happens during the retrograde that Venus will conjunct the sun, and it should be all in all, and that happens on Venus conjuncts the sun on the 22nd, March 22nd. That would be for Saturday. So think Friday, Saturday. Although Venus is retrograde, that should be a pretty lovely aspect. It's happening in Aries, so there should be a kind of, again, it's more outgoing, upbeat sort of aspect that I think should take care of Friday, Saturday. I know, so still not a great time to start something new, but it should be have a good feeling. Should be a nice social kind of feeling. The Venus Sun aspect, if you look at it in your natal chart, the Venus Sun conjunction prior to the time that you were born is quite significant, right? Sometime in the 9 months before you were born, when you were gestating, there is a point in time which the Sun and Venus conjuncted each other. And that's a special time. And you often find that people around that degree are quite significant in your life and in a very, very pleasant way. Michael Luton said that you recognize them immediately as being part of your circle or tribe or something like that. Anyway, it's a nice aspect and it should make for a nice weekend. It's the last quarter moon in Sagittarius, which is upbeat. Again, we have a lot of stuff going on that says yikes, but there's some stuff that looks pretty good. Now, before we get to that, I should say, on Wednesday, the Sun meets with Neptune. And when the Sun meets with Neptune, you don't know. Just look at it that way. You don't know. We tend to make too much out of a person or a situation and or too little. With Mercury, I talk a lot about Mercury Neptune, and with Mercury Neptune, communication, like a good story, is more important than the facts. But with Sun Neptune, it tends to get projected onto people. And sometimes even yourself, And so you see yourself or other as being, really wonderful, really terrible. Everybody is a knight in shining armor, the princess, or everybody is the dragon. And just remember that it's unrealistic. If it's fun, if you're having a good time, if it works for you, there's nothing wrong with it. It's not a great time to make any kind of a practical decision, however. So I would say, Tuesday, Wednesday, particularly. Yeah, but Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, not a great time for practical decisions. What with Mercury being retrograde and the Sun conjunct Neptune. And then the good news is that the sun on March 20th at 5:01 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, goes into Aries, his favorite sign. And why is Aries the exaltation of the sun, you say? Well, for those of us in the northern hemisphere, it is the point in time at which the sun is above the horizon most of the day, right? Up from the equinox in September. I, I know what I'm talking about. From the equinox in September through the equinox in March, the sun is below the horizon most of the day. Of course, the longest night or the shortest day is the Capricorn solstice. Once the sun gets into Aries, the days are longer than the nights. So this is good. I mean, I like this. I like this. And we're already, those of us in the US, I don't know when the UK goes to daylight time, or summertime. But we're already on daylight savings time. And I need the sun to be out at 9 o'clock in the summer, Heather. Okay? I need it. That's who needs it. We're going to make daylight savings time permanent. Okay? It's going to be permanent. Don't stand in my way. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I need it to be 9 o'clock at night and still light out in the summertime. I like it. That's all. I like it. I like it to be light out at night. The morning, I don't know. Cup of coffee. It's dark out. It's light out. I don't know. And it'll be light out at like 4 a.m. before we know it. So it doesn't matter. Anyway, it's springtime. If you're in Australia or South Africa, then it's fall. And, crisp fall days and all that crap. But for the rest of us, it's springtime. So there we go. And what does the sun do when he gets into Aries? He's going to make a nice sextile to Pluto. Now, the sun in Aries this is the solar principle is on the rise. The solar principle is really stepping up here. How many times do I have to tell you? Right? I have to keep demonstrating to you that the phone should be off. Anyways, the solar principle is on the rise, right? And this is royalty. This is the king. This is the queen. This is the person who is, and I think particularly on the collective level, this is the person who is, standing up to shine. And Pluto in Aquarius is the people. It's the power of the people. And they're working it out here. They're balancing it out. Now, we're not saying who. I'm not saying who. I'm not saying certain people with a lot of Aries, Mars energy are going to really get the benefit of this, but that is kind of suggested. And the planets don't play They don't take sides. The planets will invest this in everybody on all sides of an issue. So, keep an eye on that as we head towards the weekend, especially because the last thing that the sun does in Pisces is to meet with Neptune, right? This very, very nebulous energy, this sort of making things too good or too bad about someone. And then we have the sun connecting with Pluto right afterwards. So we're still kind of seeing things, a little too good or a little not too good as this aspect takes over. So, that should be something that we can kind of keep our eye on. When Pluto was in Capricorn, it was easy to say, the solar principle is the king or the queen, and Pluto was the banker that's holding the purse strings. But this time it's not the banker that's holding the purse strings. This time it is the public that is holding the opinion. We will see how that works out. Particularly, with Venus retrograde, this being the other aspect, the Venus Pluto aspect, which I said or should have said, um, is on the 21st. That's Thursday. Um, that is an aspect that will affect the valuations and markets, and we'll see how that goes. Already, things are not doing really well with the economy, certainly in the U.S. And we'll see how things work out with the Venus Pluto sextile. It's a revisit, as I said, it's a revisit of issues in relationship. It's also a revisit of issues that are economic in nature, and that will be interesting because we seem to be on a slippery slope when it comes to the economy at the present moment. And as the US economy goes, not like the rest of the world goes, but what actually what affects the US economy will affect, for better or worse, but for better or worse, will affect the rest of the world's economy. So it's a good thing to keep an eye on this week. It's been a good thing to keep an eye on for quite some time. Okay, there you have it. There you have it. There's big focus around relationship. Probably if you have something on the table about relationship, it's just a sort of revisit, replay, rethink things, reconsider. Economics are another area where we'll be seeing what happens on the world stage, and the solar principle rises. The principle of royalty rises this week and makes some good connections, and we will see how that plays out. But we have to remember that Mercury retrograde, Sun conjunct Neptune, we're seeing a drama unfold, but we're not really quite sure just what the truth is. Not yet, at any rate.